What's going on, guys? Welcome to an episode of Sales Funnel Radio. Hey, I wanted to do something a little different here. I just barely got off in Facebook Live, and I want to tell you why this was happening. You'll notice that, like, one of the things that, a campaign is about creating orchestrated noise, right? That's really what a campaign is. Maybe I'll define it that way. It's my own definition, but like that's all it is. That's why when someone's like, I'm running Facebook ads, it's not really a campaign. It can be part of it, but like anyway. So one of my good friends, Josh Forty, just did this cool launch, right? And he had me come on for this thing, and after our interview was done for the thing he was launching, then what he did is he had me come on, and he asked if he could get on my Facebook page, and we just chit-chat about the interview and just do like a little promo around it. I swear one of the major reasons why people do not do very well in this game is simply because they don't know how to do the second step that he just did, which is why I thought it'd be cool to share this on here. So what I've done is I grabbed the interview that he and I did together, and I chopped it down so you guys can see like kind of what we're doing and what he's asking, and throughout, like I chopped it in different places and such, but you'll see like, so throughout it, he's asking some very general questions, and then kind of after each of my answers, he'd go back to, hey, make sure you click the link in the description and go check out the interview. That skill set right there, which is a very learnable thing, is one of the easiest reasons why I see people make a great product. They'll have a great funnel. They'll even do a good launch, but then they don't follow through with it all the way, and it like cuts their launches down. And so I thought it'd be cool to share this with you so you could see this in live action and see what I'm talking about here. Campaigns are broken up of a lot of parts, right? I plan it, I put all pieces together. How am I going to get attention? How am I going to leverage the followings of other people to get attention? Once it's in the middle of launch, how do I keep the momentum going? Once it's done, how do I keep that pressure moving as well? Like, really interesting. So I thought this was a great example of that. And I think you guys will really enjoy checking out this episode. So anyway, let's cut over. It's actually to an interview I literally just finished chopping up, and I was like, you know what, let me film a little intro here and give some context for it. So whenever you guys are launching your product, whenever you're putting your stuff out, like what I would do is I would make sure that you have, it's not just about the product, obviously. It's not just about the funnel. It's about the noise, right? It's orchestrated noise. That's what a campaign is. And how are you doing that? And the success of your product is just as dependent on the noise you orchestrate as the product and the offer and the sales message itself, right? Like, if no one knows about it, you're not making any money anyway. If you get anyone to even go look at your sales message, like, it's already dead. So why'd you make it, right? So anyway, I just thought it'd be neat to kind of share this with you. So this is on a Zoom interview. And this is a very common thing. Whenever you go interview somebody for a product you're putting out, or whenever you go doing a follow-up interview, that's not abnormal at all. So I'm just giving this to you as an idea so you can see like, oh man, I should go do that. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoy it, and let me cut over there right now. You know, so I have a board right over on the side. It's a whiteboard, and you guys, this is probably my third live today with you all, right? And I was talking about this board. On the other side of this wall here, there is a whiteboard, and I call it my questions whiteboard. And I believe that questions invite revelation, right? And so that's good and bad though. So I have to focus on answering rich people questions instead of poor people questions, because whatever I ask, I will likely answer. And so what I have over it's a board that the purpose of the board is not to me to answer the questions. The purpose of the board is for me to figure out which question to focus on answering. And so, because I shouldn't try and answer everything. And so it's funny you ask that, because what I'll do is I'll walk through, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't know why, but it happens in the morning. I'm getting ready in the morning and my brain turns on. I'm like, whoa, what about this idea, right? And you're and I'm like, I'm not gonna lie, I've run out here in a towel before, right? It's like, that's such a sick idea. You know, I'll write this down, like, oh my gosh, I should try to answer that, you know? And I put it on my questions board, and I'll write and I'll write and I'll write. And then going back to that, like, I have a big list of unanswered questions of things I want to pursue. And what I find is that it's not that I'll sit down always and be like, I have to answer this now and just go dive onto this and dive into my books. But it's on interviews, because it's on my mind. It's on interviews where I'll continue to clarify the answer to that question. I'll be like, I think it's this. And as I start, so it's interesting, because one of my favorite things to go do is back and listen to those interviews and things like with you or whatever, and then hear myself go like, that was probably the coolest I've ever explained an answer to the question on that whiteboard. And so I'll go back a lot, and it's one of the coolest ways that I figure out, like, okay, that made sense. That didn't make sense. This was helpful. That was confusing. And it's only honed me and when I do more and more. So
it's interesting, how much you can learn about like certain things that you say. And, when there's like clips of the crowd and they'll get like the back angle and you'll say something and you'll watch everybody's heads go down and start writing down like all at once. And you're like, oh my gosh, they all really like that point. And so it's always interesting for me to like kind of go back and listen to old interviews or speeches or things that I've done that got a lot of really good engagement. Because I feel like you can learn so much about what people really like and what resonated and what didn't resonate. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny because the market literally votes and they don't know they're doing that a lot of times. And it's not just with products, but even content, that. And like,
yeah,
so it's cool to see that reaction where you say something and you're like, and it's right, it's helpful, but you said it differently that time. And suddenly like, it's the click and they're like, oh, that's what you mean. Right. And then you see all the heads go down. You're like, okay, note to self, say it that way next time, because it's more impactful than last time.
I believe that the key to thinking different, the key to getting basically anything that you want out of life is asking the right questions, right? Like if you know how to ask good questions, you can ultimately go out and find answers. You can have a new perspective and you can get what it is that you want out of life. But how did you learn? How does one go and actually learn good questions? And like, how do you determine what questions you're actually going to ask and what's like worthwhile to go and study or not?
One of the biggest filters I run things through is like, does that sound like a rich person question or a broke person question? And so a lot of times people try to answer broke people questions just out of habit. Like I don't clip coupons. It's nothing. I'm not against coupon clipping. Well, I am. Like one of the issues is like, if I spend my time and my attention and my focus on trying to save money, I will find out how to do it, but I also didn't learn how to make more. Right. I'd rather learn how to make more money, and who cares how much something costs at that point, right? And so it's the same, like if you guys can take all of everyone who's listening and watching now, like take all the questions you start having, because, being the One Funnel Away Challenge daily coach, doing so much in the ClickFunnels space, doing so much in my own space, like, the one thing everybody has when they start this game is a buttload of questions, and it makes sense why everyone would. Just everyone has tons and tons of questions.
Right.
That's natural, but like start writing them down. And I challenge everybody to do that. And then before you seek to answer the question, seek if it's worth answering at all.
Yeah. That's huge. That's huge.
They'll pay you in time or money.
And I love that. And one of the things that you said that's actually interesting because we mentioned it in the Mindship Playbook is the habit thing, right? You said oftentimes we just do it out of habit, right?
What's funny is like, so I'll go teach these models, right? Hey, this is a cash flow model. This is a cash flow model. This is a cash flow model. And what's funny is people, the very first reaction they have is like, well, does it work for me? Is that going to work for me? Am I in the right spot to do this? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are you kidding? Like, it ticks me off so bad.
It's like, does ClickFunnels work for?
Like, you know what? Of the 100,000 monthly subscribers, you're right. You're the one it's not going to work for, right? It's like, come on, like, just do it. What they break themselves on is they set this goal. I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to use ClickFunnels to do it, or whatever. And they don't allow themselves to break on the goal. That's the key. Like you have to break you on the goal instead of change the goal. And so Robert Kiyosaki says that as well. As you start moving towards any type of thing, you have these character flaws that explode in your face. I was probably, you could say, addicted to video games in high school. I was very overweight. I got kicked out of college. I barely graduated high school. I couldn't speak. I had major anxiety issues. I am literally right now the opposite of everything that I was back then. And it's because I started realizing like I need to allow myself to feel some pain on the way to the goal. Pain does not mean bad, and pain does not mean wrong choice. Pain means growth most of the time.
Yeah.
When you realize like, oh my gosh, like failure is really kind of a made up principle. It's not even a principle. It's made up because as I start to feel that pain, I start to feel like the progression of moving towards things. Like a lot of times, like I went back and I recounted how many times it actually took me to try and make one of these funnel things to work. And it was actually 17 funnel tries and 17 before that. It's actually my 34th thing that actually blew up from the age 20 till now.
It's crazy.
And that's a lot of freaking failure. It's like, and most of the time people aren't going to like be able to go through that. But what I became cognizant of about a third into those tries was that I was changing at a speed faster than any personal development course could ever hope to give me.
ever, and you mentioned that in the interview too, you say like entrepreneurship is the best personal development course you never signed up for, right? Yeah. I mean, like it just is. And I 100% agree with that. And it's interesting what you say about like pain and struggle. I think the one thing though that we both agree upon is that like the struggle is there for a reason. Like the struggle is a good thing. The struggle is absolutely needed to develop you into who it is that you say. So it's interesting that like, they're saying it, you're saying it, like it's there. And I think in today's society, like we're just trained to want to avoid it. You know what I mean? Like everything's convenient, everything's now, everything's easy, like avoid this. And it's, thank you marketers, right? But like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like that we're trained as a society to avoid that, which is, I think is why it's so hard for so many people. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I think a lot of it, and I'm never going to be the one that just like slams a bad mouth school and all that stuff. But you think about it and you get punished for doing something wrong in school. But like, man, I do stuff wrong all the time in business. Like it's actually the thing that accelerates me, you know, like,
right.
You can't do that here. You can't do that here. Or Steve, what if I fail? Plan on it, you know? And then you just move forward.
Just write it in.
Funny enough, it ends up being an accelerant to everything else that you do, because I've gone through that many failures and because it sucks so long. Like, man, it's not that hard to make cash now. And like, okay, well, I solved that problem. And what I've learned is that while I teach these models and then people feel this first sense of personal development requirement that comes like, oh man, I don't actually qualify to be running my dream in the first place. As they start moving there, they start to gain this self-confidence, and then they move faster, they move faster, and they move faster. And I almost want them to hit like some major speed bump quickly. Yeah. And then see if they can pick themselves back up. That kind of person, I love working with them.
Yeah, because people don't know how to fail. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I was chatting with Russell about this a little while ago, and we were just mentioning, I was like, dude, when I met you and I first started working for you in the same room, you were totally a different person a year and a half later by the time I left. And it's like the Russell Brunson of right now, right? Sorry, I should say the Russell Brunson of 3-4 years ago could not handle what he's doing right now. But too many times we're like, but I want my dream with the $1 million business now. Man, you don't qualify. Right. You know, like you got to get some personal development going down.
What would your advice to me be if I were to go down that route and be like, yeah, look, I'm going to open up a talk show where we bring on interesting guests. Maybe we talk politics. Maybe we talk business. Maybe we talk whatever. What's your advice to me when it comes to doing those interviews or creating content around that?
Okay, so I'll tell you one of the reasons why I know Sales Funnel Radio has been so successful, and this is such a big deal to people, is because it actively throws rocks around mainstream ideas that others believe. So I was in the Army, and you all know that, who's on here, right? And I was in the Army, and I went through, and I was enlisted, and I went to go become I was an ammunition specialist, which I didn't know at the time meant fancy warehouse guy. I was like, crap, I wish I would have chose something a little different. But anyway, so a little bit through that, I was like, I'm going to go be an officer. So in the middle of my officer training, one of the things that they do is they make you study wars and lots of battles and lots of strategy and movements and things like that. So you study these huge battles, and you study these and it's a ton of fun, and I really enjoyed it. And one of the things in there, the guy that was teaching us, I mean, he was like, he was ridiculously smart. He's a historian that they brought in just for us officers in training. And it was a whole semester of just studying wars. And what's interesting is in that, he taught us that wars are started over usually pretty much always out of rights, human rights, right? States' rights, human rights. That's what wars start over. Civil War was not started because of slavery. We did not leave Europe because of religious oppression. Those are how we romanticize the past. But what's funny is that in the middle of a war, a lot of times a social issue will piggyback on the war. So slavery becomes part of the Civil War, like, right towards the last hour, right? And that's when Abraham Lincoln was like, hey, Emancipation Proclamation, let's go dump it in there. And same thing with leaving Europe as Americans, all right? We're going to go in and, you know what? It's about religious freedom now. It was not at first. We were Britons, right?
Right.
Banding Britain. And the reason I bring this up is because from a marketing standpoint, when it comes to the way I treat a message, this is not something I normally would talk about either, but like I look to piggyback a message on the back of a social issue, not a human rights issue, not because then you're seen as political. But when it comes to really disruptive messages in the marketplace, socialism right now is getting a lot of attention. So one of the easiest ways for me to get a lot of attention on a show is to become the anti of something major in a social issue that's currently got momentum. So it takes a lifetime to create momentum. I don't have to do that if I piggyback on a social issue that I'm passionate on the opposite about. So like,
that's super good advice.
Yeah, I would figure out what it is. Like when you say like big things to talk about, I find that themed shows always do better than a general, let's
just talk.
Yeah. So I would find something that you find and throw rocks against it like that. And then it's very natural to find those people who are for or against to hear both sides. And then you'll get as many people who listen to you hate your guts as love you. And that's
well, I think this entrepreneurship, like micro influencer game has prepared me for the hate. Holy cow, dude.
It only gets louder.
Oh man, I tell you what, but I've learned to tune it out. So
thanks so much. Thanks for jumping on here.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much.
Boom. If you're just starting out, you're probably studying a lot. That's good. You're probably geeking out on all the strategies also, right? That's also good. But the hardest part is figuring out what the market wants to buy and how you should sell it to them, right? That's also what I struggled with for a while until I learned the formula. So I created a special mastermind called an offer mind to get you on track with the right offer and more importantly, the right sales script to get it off the ground and sell it. Want to come? There's small groups on purpose so I can answer your direct questions in person for 2 straight days. You can hold your spot by going to offermind.com. Again, that's offermind.com.